Hello, passengers. This is your Chappy speaking, and welcome back to another episode of Chappy's Wild Randings, the show where I talk a lot in hopefully a soothing voice. So sit down, relax, buckle up, and prepare for another ride. So today I want to talk about the art of the English dub of anime. So, in case you don't know what a dub is, I might as well fill you in. So, a dub is, I need to start by talking about anime from the Japan, the Nihon. So, anime is just a fancy word for cartoon and is been kind of more associated with a style of art. And anime is, Japan produces a lot of them, but it's no doubt really popular here in America. And you can watch it in its original language with subtitles on, or some people just like to watch the English dub, and then the dub is dubbed. It's using the word to explain the word. Not very good. So they re-record the audio so that it's in English or whatever language you want it to be. So these English dubs was a way for me as a kid to experience a lot of these animes, because pretty much a lot of popular shows over here in America were just were animes, and they were given a dub, such as Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball. And the art of dubbing, so I should say, has changed throughout the years. You go back and watch some old dubs, really old dubs from the 80s, and a lot of it is kind of poor, and not that the 90s and late 2000s were any better, but it's they started to get their footing and more. So one of the earliest things I remember watching anime related has got to be Pokemon. And I should probably just go briefly about the Pokemon dub. It's not so much the dub as other visual elements, but as you should know, it's Pokemon was dubbed and distributed by 4Kids, which had its own block on the WB, I believe, and they would dub and sort of censor this stuff. But I don't know, original Pokemon holds a special place in my heart. I still remember the first time I rented. Here's a fun little antidote that I'm just going to stick in the middle of this, because why not? It's my show. But I remember going to my local video store and picking up the Pokemon VHS amongst the Pokemon hype. I think this is before I even played the games, and I knew about probably the anime from commercials I've seen on TV, and I pick up the video and take it home, and I don't know if you know this about the first scene of the Pokemon anime, but it starts, it's a recreation of the opening screen to the Pokemon, even in black and white and in a pixely style. And I had thought I just rented a VHS tape of a game walkthrough. I know it's kind of ridiculous now that I think about it. So, but dubs were kind of ridiculous like that back in the day. I think another thing, it's not something I noticed as a kid, but it's something I noticed as I was going back to watch this. But in the original Digimon, the Fox Kids dub, but in my more recent viewing of this, when they introduce the Digidestined kids, they introduce them. They don't introduce them by their Japanese name, but when they introduce the characters, you can see their full Japanese names, which is their real names. But what is funny about it is most of the characters, their names are shortened or not even changed, because Mimi's was easy enough to remember, but Tai, it's shortened of his name, and TK is his initials. But the funniest is Matt, because they show his Japanese name. It's but everyone just calls him Matt. It's just funny, because that's not something that, I don't think that's something that happens in Japan, but I always thought it was funny. But so what I'm trying to get at, I kind of have not really said the main point, but I feel like in today's dubbing economy, I'm going to use the word, is so they have this thing called a simuldub, which is so essentially they get a new episode of the dub out like every week, so it's not too far behind the Japanese release. And apparently it has not been good for the dubbing industry. Like, a lot of people who kind of got their career in the mid-2000s to now are kind of can't really keep up with this trend, and it's just not good for them, and I'll get into that, but like I'm saying, like, these mid to late 2000 dubs were like always had a seal of quality to them. Like, they just, like, the trend of going above and beyond what is expected. Like, some really good dubs I can think of is Dragon Ball to an extent, like Dragon Ball Z. I know, like, the early stuff of the Ocean dub isn't the greatest, and it's like sparked memes, but the Funimation stuff's really good, and that even kind of started off kind of rough. But it's like at the point where the dub actors for Dragon Ball is the voices that people associate with the characters, and these guys have been doing the same voices for, well, since the 90s, probably close to over 20 years now, and it doesn't seem like they're stopping anytime soon, or people would probably get mad. I would. I couldn't hear these characters as other people, even though I'm kind of used to their Japanese voices, but that's neither here nor there. But a lot of these dubs kind of went beyond the original translations. Like, yeah, they have it translated, so you're still getting the same story, but they made it fit the English language. Like, if a joke was in Japanese that wouldn't translate well, they'd do something else that would. And I know, getting back into Evangelion, because I can always talk more about Evangelion.
NANI? Did someone say Evangelion?
The AVD dub, because I will say, no, Evangelion is probably the best example for this anyway. So I think the best scene to do is from the AVD dub is from when the episode when Shinji gets into Asuka's Eva, and the language setting in the Eva is set to German, and she goes, "What are you doing? You need to think in Japanese," which this is an English dub, but whatever. And I think in the Japanese he just struggles speaking, like thinking of a common German phrase, but in the AVD dub he just starts saying things like bratwurst and Wiener Schnitzel, and it got a chuckle out of me. But my kind of the point I want to make is, like, these new dubs are just way too literal. Like, they don't try to change anything, and it just goes back to Shinji struggling to speak German, which is fine, but it doesn't have the same impact. But another example I just remembered is Pop Team Epic, which is a Japanese comedy show, and like I said, a lot of, like, comedy in Japanese can be wordplay. And I remember there's just this one episode where they do kind of this language joke, and it doesn't work in the subtitles, and when they did this simuldub version, they translated pretty much the joke from the subtitle from that episode, and the joke doesn't work still. They could have done something to make the joke still work, but they didn't. That's a problem with a lot of these dubs. Like I said, they're just too literal. And a lot of them just don't seem like there's been much effort into it, and I'm not a big fan of it. I think out of, like, all of these newer dubs that kind of do the standard, I think the best one is the My Hero dub. I think I really like the voices in that. I think Chris Sabat does a great All Might, but it's like an exception of a sea of mediocre. and it's a shame like they're not doing these dubs where they try to make it work for the English language. They try to improve it for Western audience. It's just these substandard things they record and then put out on a streaming service, which it's just I don't know. They can't think of like any other thing that just puts this. Well, I'm sure there is, but not like this. Just kind of puts this half-assed quality to it. Just this very literal thing. And going back to Evangelion.
Did someone say Evangelion?
Again, sorry, but there's a minor spoilers for the end of Evangelion, but I talked about this last one, but the whole Karu thing and saying you are worthy of my grace, which being like this literal translation that just like, yeah, in Japanese that works, but their language is different in ours. That's why having Karu say he loves Shinji gets this point across a lot better than being this literal translation, because you lose some of the meaning, and it even kind of ends up changing a scene later in the series. And another spoiler for Evangelion, especially the end of Evangelion movie. There's a scene where the main character Shinji does something very very gross, so to say. I don't want to detail it out, but in the AVD he uses the line, "I'm so fucked up." Pardon my language. I'm using this to make a point. I don't care to swear in these, but in this new dub, again, is this literal translation of "I'm the lowest of the low," which, compared to the original English dub, I just don't think that phrase has the same impact as the "I'm so effed up" does. It doesn't carry the same weight because the F word in English is such an impactful word to us. It's intense, and this was supposed to be an intense, gross thing that happened. But anyway, I know I'm kind of crapping on these new dubs, but I still hold on hope, because there is one example out there of an English dub that you watch and I'm like, this is it. This is the quality everything should strive for, and that is the dub for Konosuba, which is been licensed by Crunchyroll, and I'm not 100% sure, but this might be their first licensed dub of their own, instead of like reaching out to Funimation. I know there's something weird with Mob Psycho, but anyway, let me get on with it. But so in brief, Konosuba is a comedy anime, and it's one of those few that doesn't do a lot of, I don't think it does any like language wordplay. It's a comedy that can be enjoyed just reading the subtitles, and it is pretty dang funny. Like, I've had a lot of laugh out loud moments, and like, it is probably my favorite comedy animated out there. So in short, it's kind of it's like a kid gets sent to a D&D world, and like other shows where the nerdy kid who plays a bunch of video games immediately is like a god in the world with all their skills. Like it's all based on his real physical skills, so he's just as useless here as he was in the real world, and it's very, very funny. But so Crunchyroll does this dub, and I'm kind of nervous about it because I like this anime so much, and they announce it, and out of like the cast they announce, I only recognize one of the voice actresses. Can't think of her name right now, but anyway, she's pretty big. She's the voice of Shantae, so I'll throw her name up. Christina V, that's it, the beautiful Christina V. But she's the only voice I recognize from this cast, and but it comes out, and this dub is absolutely amazing. Like, they nail it. They do the going above and beyond. Like, not only, yes, you're getting the same plot, but you're getting jokes that work in English, and not just Japanese. It's amazing. I might even just throw up some clips just to at a point like.
You're coming with me, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll tap your power to live the good life, and I'll tap it all day, every day.
Please don't make me go with a creep like him!
Nice.
No way! My spell didn't work on him!
It looked like it worked to me. He went, yeah! And everything.
My eyes! Oh, my eyes!
That spell didn't work either! My purification magic doesn't affect him at all!
What do you want? He yad rolled around a bit. I think it worked. Hunting snow sprites is the shiznit.
I don't recall a dub being this good and funny since the Ghost Stories dub, and that's its own special case of, hey, you guys can do whatever you want with the script, so they took a horror and made it into a comedy, so, yeah. This Konosuba dub gives me hope for other dubs in the future. Like, I can understand wanting to get, like, these popular animes out in English as fast as possible to generate or get more people into it, like, especially, I want to say probably the culprit is My Hero with it got really popular, and they just kind of want to keep all the fans caught up, and I can understand that, but it's also the case where you're just kind of putting out this mediocre product. So I think I'm gonna leave it here, and if you want to take away any message from this, go watch Konosuba. I highly recommend it. So it appears we are arriving at our destination, so everyone prepare for landing, and this has been your Chappy speaking. Until next time, know that you are loved and cared for. Goodbye.